This program is provided by Universal Genesis.
So imagine for a second you walk into a craftsman's shop, a real high-end place, maybe a woodworker or a metalsmith. How do you think their tools are arranged?
That's a great question to start with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do they put the most expensive, most beautiful chisel right on the top shelf for everyone to see?
And, the least expensive hammer on the bottom.
Yeah.
Or do they lay out the tools they actually need for the job right there on the workbench?
Exactly, in the order they're going to use them.
And that distinction, that's really the core of our entire deep dive today. It's the difference between what we're calling vertical shelving and horizontal shelving in philosophy.
It is, and this metaphor, this idea, it points directly to what many critics call a fundamental structural defect in the work of one of history's most ambitious thinkers, G.W.F. Hegel.
Right, Hegel, famous for trying to build this massive theory of everything, the ultimate intellectual architecture.
He really was. So our mission today is to get into Hegel's greater logic. This is the philosophical core of his whole system. We want to understand why this huge, beautiful structure he built, why it works more like an impressive display case than a functional tool set.
A tool set you could use to solve actual problems.
Precisely. And to help us see that, we're going to use Aristotle and Immanuel Kant as counterpoints to show what a more functional, usable system actually looks like.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with this towering vertical structure that Hegel built.
So when you look at the greater logic, Hegel's ambition was, it was off the charts. He wanted to create a complete catalog of every concept you'd ever need to understand reality.
But he wasn't just listing them, was he?
Oh, not at all. He was building a skyscraper. He took Kant's 12 fundamental categories.
Which Kant saw as the basic tools the mind uses to make sense of the world.
Right. The tools for making experience possible. Hegel took those and just performed this massive verticalization. He stacked them.
So if Kant is saying, here are the 12 instruments the mind uses, Hegel is saying,
not only that, I'm going to prove that these instruments must be stacked up in this one single necessary hierarchical order.
And that hierarchy, it has major realms like being, essence, and concept.
That's the basic structure, yes. And then each of those is just infinitely subdivided. This whole thing, this is the philosophical tool shop's display shelf.
So what's the logic behind the stacking? It's not random, I assume.
No, it's driven by his dialectical sequence. Specifically, this movement from the most abstract concept all the way up to the most concrete.
So knowledge itself evolves, in his view.
Exactly. It starts with something super simple, super abstract, like just being. And then, through a necessary sequence of contradiction and resolution, it evolves up and up until it reaches the highest, most complex form, the absolute spirit.
Which means the higher up a concept is on that shelf, the more developed it is, the more important it is in the grand scheme of things.
That's it. So every concept, whether it's for, chemistry or ethics or politics, it has to be placed on this shelf according to its rank in this one single story. He's saying this vertical hierarchy is the only rational order.
But if we go back to our Craftsman, that logic is all about authority, not utility.
You've hit the nail on the head. The problem isn't that the concepts are wrong. The problem is that the sequence is, from a practical standpoint, totally rigid and arbitrary.
A craftsman would never work that way. They don't put the chisel up high just because it's an esteemed tool.
Of course not. They'd never get a single job done. They arrange their tools based on the engineering order of the process.
And this is where that incredible ramen shop analogy we found really clicks. It just perfectly shows the gap between his ambition and the actual result.
It's a perfect analogy for this structural failure. Because Hegel, you see, he succeeded brilliantly at organizing all the philosophical ingredients, the noodles, the broth, the soy sauce.
He could show you a perfectly arranged shelf of ingredients.
A pristine shelf, organized by their rank of development, from the most basic element up to the most complex.
He never made a single bowl of ramen.
Not one. He cataloged everything beautifully, but he couldn't actually use it to solve a concrete problem. Because the order you need for doing something for cooking is totally different from the order you use for displaying the history of the ingredients.
So Hegel ends up being the store clerk, great at arranging the inventory.
But not the craftsman. Not the person who can actually solve a problem by using the tools.
That's such an interesting way to put it. His whole logic becomes a kind of a description of intellectual history, not a prescription for how to think.
Absolutely. The vertical system traps you as the store clerk. So, okay, let's flip this. Let's look at the philosophy of the craftsman. Let's talk about Aristotle and Kant.
The horizontal workbench. What defines this alternative?
It's really simple. Horizontal shelving just means your tools are arranged based on purpose and process. What are you trying to do?
So it's the engineering order of the problem that dictates the setup.
Precisely. It sounds so intuitive, right? If you're building a cabinet, you grab the measuring tape, then the saw, then the drill.
You don't start with a drill because it's somehow conceptually higher than the tape measure?
Exactly. And the ultimate historical example of this is Aristotle.
What's so amazing about Aristotle is that he also had his own set of fundamental concepts, his 10 categories: substance, quantity, quality, and so on. But he used them differently.
Totally differently. He never, ever insisted they had one single vertical order for everything. He used them horizontally. He had a specific set of categories he'd apply for his physics.
And then a completely different set for his ethics or his biology.
Right. He understood that studying a rock requires a different conceptual toolkit than studying, a virtuous life.
He treated his categories like adaptable instrument kits, specialized for the job.
That adaptability is everything. He was a practical, problem-focused thinker. And we see the same principle, really, with Kant. His 12 categories were fundamentally practical. They were designed as utility tools for establishing experience.
For the purpose of making scientific judgment possible.
His system was built to be used in an engineering order to synthesize knowledge. It could withstand that horizontal application.
So he boiled it all down.
It boils down to this.
Yeah.
Hegel's vertical display shelf creates authority. It claims to be the one true, correct order of the universe.
Whereas the horizontal workbench of Aristotle and Kant creates technology. It gives you a method, a technique you can actually use.
Usability versus declaration. That's the difference.
And that leads us straight into the reason why Hegel's system, for all its grandeur, is ultimately unusable, this fatal flaw of search impossibility.
This is the heart of the critique. If Hegel really wanted to run a functional tool shop for human thought, he absolutely needed a clear, usable index, a catalog. And that's where the whole system just collapses on itself.
So why is the indexing so broken? What is it about that vertical structure that ruins the catalog?
It's because the whole arrangement is based on this confusing, self-unfolding story, this narrative of development. It's not based on function or definition or purpose.
It's like trying to use a dictionary where the words aren't alphabetical.
Worse. It's like they're organized by the year they were first conceptually debated by ancient Greeks. It's an archive for a historian, not a tool for a practitioner.
And the sources point to other indexing failures too, right?
Oh, yes. The dialectical process itself creates chaos for the index. Concepts get duplicated. The same exact tool, like essence or spirit, doesn't just appear once. It shows up on multiple shelves, in multiple chapters, because it's evolving through the story.
So if I'm a user and I look up essence in the index, I might find 3 different versions, each at a different stage of its own development. That sounds like a nightmare.
It's logical chaos for anyone trying to actually apply the concept. And on top of that, there's no categorization by professional use. There are no ready-to-use kits.
No scientific method kit or ethical reasoning kit?
Nothing. A scientist can't just grab the tools they need because all the parts are scattered vertically across this entire conceptual skyscraper.
Because the whole system is organized by this development story, A comes before B, because B is a higher version of A, not by a functional classification.
And this brings up a really important question. Why do we always hear that Hegel is so difficult? The argument here is that it's not just the inherent difficulty of the concepts, it's the search impossibility.
It's an information engineering failure. The structure is like a massive hyperlinked folder tree with no clear labels.
A folder tree where even the creator gets lost.
Yeah.
And we have historical proof of this. Hegel himself struggled with it. The structure of his lectures on the logic changed subtly every single year.
He was tweaking the arrangement himself.
Constantly. And even more telling, when his contemporaries would discuss excerpts of his work, there was just constant confusion among his own followers about where a specific concept actually sat in the grand structure.
Wow. So if the man who built the system and his most devoted students couldn't easily navigate it,
then it's fundamentally unusable for the craftsman. The system's internal logic became more important than its external utility.
So let's bring this back to you, the listener. What does all this mean? What's the so what of this deep dive into philosophical architecture?
Well, a good philosophical system should work like a thought support system. It should be a reliable way to, classify a problem, find the right tool, and apply it.
And Hegel's system just isn't that. It's a gigantic database without a useful index.
An unusable database. And this explains so much. It explains why, for all his influence in philosophy departments, Hegel's practical impact on other fields is just tiny compared to Aristotle or Kant.
Right, the real-world practitioner.
The scientists, the economists, the lawyers, the engineers, they don't use Hegel. They can't. They can't afford to consult a system where the tool they need is buried under a chapter called the Subjective Concept Subform C, Stage 2.
Instead, they stick with the systems that are search possible, the clear categories of Aristotle, the rules of Kant, the highly indexed tools of math and physics.
At the end of the day, humanity solves problems using the horizontal engineering order shelf. The vertical philosophy is built to display authority, but the horizontal philosophy is what actually advances human knowledge because it's built for work.
It's the difference between a museum curator and a working architect.
A perfect way to put it.
So we've really established this critical difference. Hegel built this beautiful, authoritative display, the vertical shelf. But Aristotle and Kant created usable, adaptable technology, the horizontal workbench. The real value of a system is in its utility, not just its grandeur.
And you can apply this idea to any large body of knowledge, not just philosophy. The survival power of any big knowledge system is directly tied to its search possibility.
If you can't find it, you can't use it.
Exactly. If you can't find the knowledge quickly and apply it to a real task, it becomes obsolete. It simply doesn't matter how beautiful the organization is or how grand its claims are.
So the true test isn't how beautifully a theory is shelved, but how easily a craftsman can grab the right tool for the job. You have to ask yourself, is your own knowledge organized for display, or is it organized for work?
This program is provided by Universal Genesis.